Oh, well, let's call the meeting to order for finance on July 16th, 2026. Good evening, everyone. We have, hi, we have Lisa Wolf, who's an alternate, is gonna shortly be seated, and Bill Bennell online, and in the room, we have Jason Ross, Steph Summers, and we'll see Eric DeCastro in a minute. I move to seat Lisa Wolf for Christina Milehose. Second by Jason Ross, and all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Bill, I need you to vote. If you could stand muted, can you stand muted? I think you'd be okay unless you're at a party. Okay, 1 second, technical difficulties. Lisa, you too, and if you want,
Aye.
just. Thank you.
Can you hear me?
Yes, thank you. And, okay, so that's unanimous. Well, I guess you see, that's where you see it when, yeah, okay. So that's 3-0, you got that right. Okay, Lisa, thank you. You're on. And, now I'd like to move that we seat Eric DeCastro for Walter Parcell on his request.
Second.
Thank you, Jason. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, we should probably take a voice vote from here on out, shouldn't we?
We can.
Okay.
Ms. Summers,
Yes.
Mr. Brunel? Mr. Brunel,
Yes.
Oh, thank you.
Mr. Ross,
Yes.
and we see, and Ms. Wolf.
Yes.
Thank you.
4-0.
Okay, 4-7. Thank you. Eric, for serving. Okay, so, I don't know if there's not too many comments I'm gonna make, but if you, but just to note that there was a town meeting last night. It pretty much cemented the July 28th, fourth budget referendum date, and the hours are the same as always, 6 AM to 8 PM. And that's a Tuesday, of course, and the voting place is the same in the town office building upstairs. The overall increase for the Board of Ed budget is a growth of 2.6%. The overall tax increase is right at 4.2%, which is the current rate of inflation. And the Board of Ed budget has been reduced, its proposed budget has been reduced by $428,000. They're struggling with an increase of $712,000 that of new spending that is cemented in by contracts, labor contracts, and a 7,000 placement student and an 18+% increase in health insurance for employees. So that's a town-wide increase that the selectmen budget's also dealing with, but that one has already passed. So, anything anyone wanna add about that? I'm just kind of doing a quick update since it's summer and that date's coming up pretty fast. Oh, one thing I'll add is absentee ballots are available in the town clerk's office during any Willing town hours between now and July 27th. Before the referendum. Okay. We're gonna dispense with approval of minutes until the August meeting, or any meeting before then. I think we'll probably do it at the August 20th meeting. And, but they are, we'll try to, between now and then, make them available online, even though they haven't been approved yet. That's fine. Present to speak. Anyone want to speak from online or in the room? make yourself known. I think most people are participants or citizens. I'll give you another chance. If you want to be present to speak up front, there'll be another opportunity at the end. Oh, Mike. Go ahead, Mike. Oh, do that.
There, I had trouble unmuting, sorry.
That's okay.
Mike McCoo, Clover Springs Drive. Just a brief comment, which is more so in my role of first selectman. I just want to let everyone know, maybe it's sort of a good and welfare thing. Anyone who doesn't know is our revenue collector, Ashley Montez, has accepted a job in another community and will be leaving us soon. I'm working with the rest of the board and staff in the building for contingencies. Obviously, this is a bad time of year to be losing your revenue collector, but we do wish her well in her next endeavors as she moves on, to the next bigger and better step in her career. And as I said, I want to make sure everyone knows that we are working on a plan to make sure there's seamless support for the community, especially since tax bills are about to go out. And on that note, the tax bills came from the printer this afternoon. It'll take a few days to get them all appropriately sorted in envelopes and out to the people. And by Monday at the end of the day, hopefully sooner, they will be available in the online system as well. So you can pay through the website. And you could also come into the office and pay starting Monday morning, because it is uploaded into the system within the town office building. So they could look your bill up for you Monday morning at the office if you wanted to pay right away. But again, it'll go out in the mail next week, and it will also be available online by the end of the day on Monday. So you have 3 options starting next week. That's
Thanks,
it.
Mike. Questions? Bill, did you have a question?
Yeah, I have a question for Mike. Does it save us a lot of processing time by doing the payment online?
Depending on which payment method you use, there's a small processing fee for the payment service to handle it. So that is an extra cost to the taxpayer. It is small, but there is a processing fee. And I don't know what it is because it depends on what payment method you use.
Yeah, I was
But
thinking of like ACH from an account or something like that.
yeah, and again, you'd have to look at what's online to get that instruction. As far as speed, obviously doing it in person or online is pretty much instantaneous, and through the mail is, subject to waiting for the processing through the mail. Then and the check would come into the office and then get deposited. So that would take longer, obviously.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Any questions online, Lisa? Any questions left for Mike? Okay. Thank you. We'll move on. Any other present to speak in the room? Most of the people here are going to be speaking soon anyway. Okay, so moving ahead then. Well, we already kind of talked about the referendum. Is there anything that you guys want to add or discuss about that? Bill, Lisa? Okay. So first item on new business is the school building committee. Consolidated school project options and debt servicing strategies and discussion. Jim Marshall, SBC Chair.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And thank you guys very much for the opportunity to have this discussion with you. So lots to share. What I will say is, just in advance, I know we got a smaller crowd tonight. The SBC has an upcoming community conversation event planned for this coming Wednesday. It'll be at the Wellington Library in the downstairs community room, where we will be presenting updated versions of a lot of this information. So with that said, this is still very fresh for us. It came in late Tuesday, and we haven't had a chance to discuss much of this in detail as a committee yet. or present it to the public officially for the SBC. So I'm gonna share this with you tonight for the purposes of discussion, but I am gonna steal it back from you.
And did you say what this is? What, you're gonna share?
I'll walk you through it and discuss. I'm sorry for the guys online, but once we have our meeting on Wednesday,
Sure.
I will be sure to follow up with you.
So don't write on this.
You can write on it all you want, I'm gonna take your answer. I'll have 2 copies of these, so this is what was used to generate that. That's the debt servicing schedule that we received from the town's financial consultant. I do have a copy for you. Yeah. All right, so, just some background in what you have in front of you. So the first off, the first 2 items are things that we have put out there. We discussed it at our meeting on Monday night. The first is the summary of the 3 options that we're looking at. It gives you total project budgets, as well as the estimated reimbursement rate and the estimated town share after state reimbursement is applied. So the 3 options, and I'm sure you're somewhat familiar with the projects that the school building committee is looking at, but we are looking at an addition renovation at the existing Hall School site, new construction of a new consolidated school on the Hall School site, and then the removal of the existing Hall School after students have transitioned in. And then the additional option is another new school, consolidated school on a new site that are on adjacent parcels to the existing Hall School property. So those are the 3 options that we're looking at. Obviously, the acreage on the new school on new site option is significantly more favorable and appropriate to the recommended usable site area that the state recommends for a PK through 8 school, somewhere in the 15 to 20 acres range. It does offer some flexibility, but there are each has their own pluses and minuses. We're not going to go into the details of the merits of each of the options specifically tonight. What I will speak to is how some of these options, the particulars of some of these options impact pricing, and how the budgets are derived. So for example, in the additions renovations option, it is these are all pretty similar in project price. The total project cost is 96.8 million down to 94.6, depending on your option. So they're all within striking distance of each other. The estimated town share is generally between 9.43 and 9.96 million. So that is after all of the 93 to 95% state reimbursement. That's what the town will be on the hook for debt servicing for. The particulars of each of the options. So the addition renovation option, a couple of important things to note. Because it is a phased renovation, that process takes significantly longer to implement, particularly if the building's being occupied and we don't have alternative spaces for these students to go. So that construction duration is a 4-year window, whereas both with the new building, the construction duration is a 2-year window. So with that, obviously increased or escalation, a longer construction duration, project requirements, some of those things are built into that pricing structure. The new construction on the existing hall site is fairly straightforward. The particulars, the differences in pricing really between those 2 options are in the property acquisition for the new parcels and the additional land development costs. Again, all of that work is eligible for that state reimbursement at 93%. So you'll see that even with the land purchase, 93% of that is covered by the state grant. So the pricing isn't dramatically different, even with all that additional parcel work and the site work associated with it. The other advantage and the reason why we've also looked at these 3 options making use of the existing hall site is because anything that happens on the existing hall parcel and to the existing hall building, as long as it's related to an education to this consolidated school project, is eligible for that same 93% reimbursement. That's really favorable because that was one of the big questions that the former school building committee had. The anticipated offset costs of having to deal with Hall if it weren't in use of a school. That takes care of this and covers it in that same really high reimbursement rate from the state. So those are our three options. That's really the baseline. We have an architect and an OPM team, as you're probably aware. They have developed cash flows for the implementation of each of these projects starting from approval through to occupancy and post-occupancy. So that is the information that I didn't print those for you because they're a lot.
The timing of the bill, do you mean?
Yeah, the anticipated, not only their cash flow basically, so the amount that the town will need to either pay upfront or bond or capitalize year after year, factoring in reimbursement from the state along the way. So it's all complicated, done by people that can talk to it way better than I can. But those cash flows are what we use to generate the debt servicing packet that you have there from the town's financial consultant. So separately, before I get into the actual nuts and bolts of that, the next page in your packet, or the next 3-page in your packet, deals with what happens, or trying to understand what the budgetary impacts are if we do not pass a consolidated school project, understanding that the existing school buildings have a significant amount of capital repair work to get done. This is not specifically associated with our charge, but it is a counterpoint, right? It's something that to give this community a full picture of what we're looking at ahead, and why consolidated school project options are being considered. We needed to present that information as well. So what our current team has done was we've got a decade or more of work on understanding the needs of these schools, right? The Board of Ed had contracted with a separate architectural team they had done when the last attempt at a school building project failed. They did a complete comprehensive assessment of both schools, identifying 5 levels of priority repairs that the schools need to be both safe and to improve the educational environment for the town. It is $60 million. I think it's on the next page. Yeah, they identified $61.5 million of repairs, and this was in 2024, so several years ago. Costs have increased since then, obviously. The reality is this town can't and won't be able to afford to do any of that. So we tried to look at it more as a fix what you absolutely have to, or fix what you know you're going to have to over the next several years. So we whittled that down to only the priority 1 and priority 2 repairs identified in that prior report, which was $41.9 million worth of projects. These are building integrity, these are health, safety, welfare, these are accessibility, these are security. These are the prioritized repairs. They aren't the, nice, we want a brand new complex. These are what keeps the building operational and what keeps students safe and building occupants safe. So that whittled it down to $41.9 million, which is still quite a bit, right? We're not gonna, and it's also not practical to implement that all in one shot. We just can't in occupied buildings without any flex space. They're major projects. It doesn't happen that way. So we asked our team to phase this, to look at implementing that work in a phased implementation over the next 10 years should the project fail, and what that really looks like for the community. Understanding that when you're looking at repair costs, the 93.33%, 95% reimbursement isn't on the table anymore. The state share, they only reimburse eligible work, and only about 25% of that 41 million is eligible for state reimbursement. Which leaves the town share at $30.6 million. So that's what we're looking at for phased implementation. So they took that, what you see in the next slide is they took that and broke that out into, okay, we're going to take the first chunk, we're going to do a significant scope of work in years 1 through 3. Then we're going to look at doing another project of some significance in year 3 through 5. And then the balance would be another grouping of projects, just so that we could split up the financing and stagger the impact to the town. Of course, when you do that, escalation plays a factor because things cost more the longer you wait to do them. So they factored in escalation at 4.25% annually. What you'll see is that it brings the total cost of the projects, the total cost of the work when all completed, up significantly. That's the nature of implementing projects over time and looking at longer durations before you can get the projects. What that boils down to is about, sorry, I'm having trouble doing simple math right now, $14 million of need of project cost to town in years 1 through 3 combined at both center and hall. That jumps to another, call it 25 million of project costs in years 3 to 5, and then another 50 million or so because of escalation and putting off and deferring projects, which is part of the reason why we're having so much trouble funding things now. That's how that gets spread out. So the fourth option, that brings me to this, which is really a summary that tries to, at least for this board, identify what we're looking at for, yes, what we're looking at for project costs, what we're looking at for debt servicing need, and then what we're looking at for tax impact for each of the 4 options, for the 3 options and the repair option. The debt servicing, they have prepared debt servicing for that break fix option, assuming that we're going to bond a project on year 1, we're going to bond a project in year 3, we're going to bond a project in year 6. And then they structured a debt servicing schedule to accommodate that based on this information that I shared with you. So, long story short, this packet is for those 4 project options based on the debt servicing schedule provided by Munistat to the SBC. What we asked them to do, just as kind of a background on this, we have accrued through CIP over the last several years, $3.6 million. We're anticipating another $1 million in the 5-year plan that was started a few years ago in the next fiscal year. That allows us the opportunity to structure debt in a way to defer any cost to town until such time as the building is operational, at which time operational savings can be achieved. So that's the underlying approach that we asked her to do for the 3 consolidated school project options. And just walking you through this. So
Feel free to point out what columns you're.
I will as soon as
I know you know this, like
Yeah.
it's tattooed on you somewhere, but.
and it's a lot. So this is why we're gonna summarize and simplify this
Okay.
before it goes to the public, obviously, but I figured this board should at least see the full picture. So the first one, the first sheet on your in your packet is new construction on the, you have the existing HMS site? Did I staple them all the right way?
This is new construction, new set.
That's the way it was supposed to be. I knew I did something wrong.
Well, that's what.
Yeah, mine too.
Nope, that's how it's supposed to be.
Same with you.
I'm looking at it and that didn't look right. All right. So the first page in your packets is new construction on new site. So with that strategy in place, based on the cash flow, you'll see project development and construction. There's a series of both note and bond payments. The bond itself won't hit until your 3rd column. So there's a series, and so as the project is being designed, there's cost for design, there's cost for, site prep, onboarding consultants, all of that stuff in fiscal year 2027, which would start after a referendum in the fall. There's design work to get us through the end of the fiscal year. They structured it so that there's a note to cover that work, which we would pay interest on the following year. And then for the next year as well, because design will be about 18 to 20 months. So 2 years of notes to cover that initial work before we bond for the construction of the project in year 3. So fiscal year 29. That's when we cover both a bond for what the final value is, but also notes to cover us to get us to the point, to cover the cash flow needs on a year-to-year basis. So we're pulling the bond at the start of construction. And then notes covering us through until the project is closed out, essentially. So that's really where the bond hits in year 3, and then there's a series of notes that get you out until 2031, excuse me. So this covers you through post-construction, et cetera. Then the notes are retired and all we're left with is the bond, right? So, and this is true of both the new options. We can go into the numbers are fairly consistent here. So that's why I'm spending time on the strategy, just to get your thoughts on it. So with that, we start seeing proposed new debt servicing in fiscal year 28 and then onward. What we've done is applied that anticipated, well, the existing 3.6 plus the anticipated 1 million of additional reserve savings that this town is projecting to have. We've used that to pay the interest on those, to pay the interest on the notes, pay the interest on the bond. That gets us all the way through until we run out of those funds in 2032, 2 years after the building will be operational in this new scenario. So what that does, what that means, and if you look at the reserve savings applied, the net mill rate impact, it's the middle box bottom line. There is a 0 mill rate impact to this project up until 2032, which is the year of greatest impact. And at that time, because we've run out of reserve savings for paying the bond, we're looking at a $900,000, roughly a $900,000 debt servicing cost that then depreciates over the next 18 years or so. For at the highest point, a 1.38 mill rate increase specific just to this project implementation. That does not, and these are some other important points. This assumes the worst case scenario that we have identified if there is variable in the option, right? So we're assuming 93.33% state reimbursement. There is opportunity to get it up to 95%, which would lower the project cost. We're not applying any bond premium, any discounts for bond premium, et cetera, et cetera. It assumes the project contingency that's in our budget, which is healthy but reasonable for what a project of this scale is. It assumes we're fully expending that project contingency. That, as an ROPM will tell you, is unlikely. In most of the projects he doesn't come through, he doesn't expend his full contingency on the project. So that would reduce the total cost as well. It's not going to be dramatic, but it will improve these numbers potentially meaningfully. So this is worst case. So 1.38 mils new on new site. And that is also before, and the reason we structured this until we can get the building open is because at that time we can capitalize on operational savings in the Board of Ed budget. 2 buildings to 1, there's staffing reductions through efficiency of service, getting everybody under one roof, 1 nurse instead of 2. We have a list from the Board of Ed that is being developed that identifies those staffing reductions. We'll be sharing that next week as well. That's why it's an estimate at this point in time, but it's in that neighborhood. So we're looking at, if we achieve 519 students, which is the projected enrollment growth. So again, worst case scenario, those fewer staffing reductions available to us if we have to get to 519 students. It's estimated around $500,000 annually in operational savings. So that's a reduction in the Board of Ed budget by $500,000. On top of that, we're anticipating significant operational efficiencies in other portions of the budget. More efficient heating and cooling systems, building envelope, less energy supply costs. That's probably in the neighborhood of $200,000 or so off of what the Board of Ed budget is paying now. So it allows us to realize, with the building operational and in use, it allows us to realize those savings to pretty much largely offset the entirety of that new debt servicing cost. separately on this because we're trying to show and identify what really the tax impact and the budget impact is related to this project, this consolidated school project. So as I mentioned, we're saving $1 million a year, or we projected to save $1 million a year in the capital reserve to work on a school project. That budgeting with this implemented, that need goes away because we are able to cover the rest of this project development without additional savings to cover this work in theory. So that's $1 million in the budget that is freed up as a result of this project that can be used for other things, other pressing town needs, reduction in the total budget and, you know, savings to taxpayers. The SBC isn't going to tell the town, it can't tell the town how they're going to use that money, but we're identifying it as this is the reality of what our budgets are going to look like if we can implement this project. So once all of those offsets are applied, you start seeing significant, like $1.5 million reduction. You're going to start to see that's real in the budget. That'll be a budget reduction related to this project in 2029. That's $1 million off the budget. Once you get operational savings 2 years later in 2031, and keep in mind, 2032 is the year where we actually start making payments. We're looking at 1.7, that's $1.7 million estimated in budget reduction, which then the next year is reduced because the bond hits. But all in all, these projects will offer the opportunity for this town to see significant budget reductions that are greater than what the debt servicing is likely to be. What I will say, just on the debt servicing, we had a run, they're 20 years, level principal. I told you how we had her structure it. Yeah, and she ran actually what you see there is the most favorable debt servicing schedule for each of the options. She had run a couple of different ways of bonding and note of structuring the debt until the building is operational. So we went with the most effective option, which is basically bonding year 3 when construction starts. The 3 options are all pretty similar. What you'll note, what's the next one in here? The phase repairs? No, add rent, right? Thank you. So again, because those numbers are fairly similar, you know, in the total budget and total cost of the town, there isn't a dramatic change in how this is implemented. The big change in the phase renovations is that the construction duration is 2 years longer. So while we're using the same principles and applying the reserve savings that we have to defer any cost to town or any mill rate impact until the building is operational, you don't quite get there in this option. The building is operational in 2033 is when we're basically able to capitalize on operational savings. 2032 are the funds run out, the reserve savings run out. So you start to see a tax impact in 2032. But other than that, it's fairly consistent and fairly similar. The next option, like I said, the new construction on the existing site is pretty similar to the first option I discussed, same time frame, same duration. The big difference, and this is why these are so important. The last sheet that you have in your packet, phase repairs at HMS and CMS. This is that repairs phased over the 10-year period, right? There is no operational savings to be applied to this. We don't get any operational savings combining 2 schools to 1 by trying to implement repairs on the existing 2 schools. I do still show a retiring of that $1 million reserve fund to CIP because we're bonding all of this and it is what it is. I wanted to apples to apples, we're retiring that debt either way. But we see about $400,000 of cost of debt servicing cost in as early as 2028. That if you go to the net mill rate impact in the middle column, the lowest line on the middle column, 0.65 mils as early as 2028. It climbs up to, in the worst year, 4.45 mils, $2.9 million of debt servicing in 2034 before it starts to decline year after year.
Mhm.
So it increases from 0.65 in 2028, 1.6 in 2031. That's $1 million, a little over $1 million in debt, up to 4.45 in 2034. Even with the offsets, even with that $1 million reduction, this town is seeing increases in its budget because of that project and because of the scale of trying to get ahead of 100-year-old building phase repairs, even just the important stuff. The
height of-
health, safety, well, like that's not extra spaces, that's not really enhancing the educational environment at all, that's just keeping the building safe and looks really contained. So that is really why we're looking at consolidated school options. It's also why the major infrastructure repairs at some of the schools, so we're not talking about repairs. We're not talking about upkeep or repairs at the schools. That's not the concern with the existing buildings. What we're talking about is building systems that are just past the end of their useful life. Roofs have an age, a life cycle before they simply can't be repaired anymore. Mechanical systems become outdated. Buildings don't function, accessibility, needs change over time, requirements change over time, things like that. This is what we're talking about, that we're looking ahead for these buildings, for the community. Not just slapping a coat of paint on the walls. That gets done even in our limited budgets annually, to the extent that the budgets allow for it, but it is done. We're talking about major system costs that we don't have the budget for, even with the 4.6 million in savings that we've accrued, or that we will accrue, it doesn't cover it.
So the repair only is, that the height of it is 3 times what any of these other scenarios are, 3 times or more.
Yep. And it lasts longer too. Because obviously you're bonding multiple times, you're bonding later years, so there's debt servicing all the way out to 2053 in this.
Mhm.
Whereas the debt servicing ends in 2049 for
Right.
for any of the consolidated school options.
So it is
So-
14 more years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I wanted to get this in front of you guys now as a conversation point, because we are at the point where we're trying to finalize budgets, we're starting to look at a very busy calendar where we're prepping towards several opportunities for the town to vote on both which project option they prefer, as well as getting geared up towards referendum, public hearing, town meeting referendum. So speaking to that, we wanted to get this in front of you now. Largely to kind of see what your thoughts are, if you guys had any questions, and introduce you to, where we're at from a budgetary perspective, but also, this is a town-wide effort, right? The board, there are multiple boards in town are gonna have a say in this: planning and zoning, board of selectmen, board of finance. We all need to work collectively and cohesively together, to come up with the best solution for the town. This is where the school building committee has started with the analysis. So I'd ask, does it sound? I'm not gonna make you, I'm not gonna say, yeah, definitively give me an answer right now, but this is where we're talking from. And I wanted to talk through the logistics and see if structuring this so that you defer any impact to town until the building's operational feels like a good start for us. I wanted to get some initial thoughts and give you time to provide feedback after the fact too. But even things 20-year term, I know that's probably preferred.
Yeah, that surprises me well, that's what they worked on, but that's of course what we would, what I would.
I mean, we can explore
Recommend this
other
plan.
terms, but we pay more in interest than the total project cost. So 20 years is about what you do. We could do a 25. They don't recommend going to 30.
Mhm.
But given the percentage reimbursement that we're getting, I just don't think it's worth the interest. It'll probably it'll cost us more in the end if we defer the stretch out the term any longer. We didn't have them run it because of where these numbers fell. I mean, you're looking at for $100 million new school project in town, you're talking about an increase that matches what we're talking about for a budget increase in 1 year. Without offsets,
Right.
and those offsets make it not an increase.
I don't think this was the intent or anything, but it puts in sharp relief why it's been so hard to repair the schools along the way on typical capital funding already. You know,
Yeah.
when you kind of look at these numbers, it makes it kind of clear why it's been a losing prospect.
Yeah, well, there hasn't been the funding to do anything of any significance. And even with a more recent effort and contribution of, that $1 million target a year for 5 years, like that's still nowhere near where
Right.
the cost needs to
Really
be
are.
to implement that, without additional cost of the town. So
Thoughts, folks?
I'm sorry, you guys, I will share this after we release it publicly, to those of you online, so that you can see the numbers, but,
So the SBC is gonna be drilling down, seeing the updated numbers on Monday.
yeah, so
And-
we have, we have a special meeting called for Monday. We're really addressing project schedule predominantly
Yeah,
on that end, but we're preparing for another community engagement workshop session with our architect OPM that's really gonna be focused on this financial picture and this financial information. We're also still waiting, we've asked them to prepare as part of our charge, it's a requirement of what we're trying to do, but also we're trying to get values for ancillary costs, what to do with center, for example. So we've asked them to prepare order of magnitude numbers for what if we just demolished the building, for example, and made it a town park? It's a town asset. That's one option. There are probably 50 different options that this town can consider. It has a couple of years to figure that out if we can advance a consolidated project, because that school will be a school for several years.
mhm.
But there are opportunities with that the town is going to have to grapple with. We're trying to give you some. We're trying to give the community a baseline of here are some options for potential costs. The town needs to decide what we want to do with these buildings.
Mhm.
Demolishing them might be one, converting it to a municipal, like a business municipal use. I know it's been mentioned as town hall. That's another one we're exploring. Just a square foot renovation cost to turn that into into another town function. But I mean, there are all sorts of options. It could be sold by the town. It could be some sort of a developer partnership where it becomes, senior housing. There are all sorts of, we can't explore all of those, but we can give you an order of magnitude for some of them.
Or a regional facility or something.
Something along those lines. So we can give you baselines, like this is what it costs to renovate this to something else. And this is what it costs to get rid of it. And we're gonna do similar options for hall as well. Because there is potentially opportunity, if the new building on a new site option is ultimately what advances, there might be opportunity for this town to look at subdividing the existing hall building off as a separate parcel, keeping it out of the project. Again, if this town wants to maintain that building, the cost for that, we're getting costs to renovate just the original historic,
Right.
main building.
Mhm.
It's probably $15 to $20 million. So that's a consideration that the town is, and we'll have better numbers on that. I shouldn't even thrown that out, quite frankly, but that's the range we're expecting based on the early discussions we've had. Which obviously wouldn't be reimbursed if it's not related to a school project, it
Right.
would not be reimbursed from the state. So these are all things that we're trying to open the discussion at that aren't related to this project, even if it's outside the SBC's purview, but that is why we've explored options on the hall site to bring that cost into the project so that it is deferred and reimbursable. So all of that is happening Wednesday. It'll be at the library. I should know the time, but I forget, but we will have an announcement coming out about that very shortly. I do want to set some tentative speaking schedule. So as I said, the next 2 months are a very highly coordinated Meth, I mean, I can show you. This is this is a month and a half of important dates, and I want to put some on your radar, okay?
I have that library stay as 7.
So library on Wednesday, thank you, 7 o'clock.
Yeah.
We'll go with that, and I'll correct you if I don't think
Okay.
it's wrong. So there are a couple of things that the school building committee is getting to the point, we're looking for feedback, we're trying to get some advisory polling dates where people can formally vote and pick their preferred consolidated school option. We're looking at Tuesday, August 4th as definitively one of those dates, and we're threading the needle between primaries and all sorts of stuff in town. But we're also looking at a second date for that as well, potentially a Saturday, the following Saturday, August 8th. But with that, following that, the school building committee is going to be tasked with making a recommendation to the Board of Finance or the Board of Selectmen as to which project we should advance to referendum. So I think you have a regular meeting on August 17th, which is probably going to be an action item for you guys.
It's August 20th.
August 20th, sorry, yes, August 17th is the Board of Selectmen. August 20th is going to be the important date, where we'll be before you. Well, we may not be before you, but we'll be here for you, but it'll be an action item for you to, discuss advancing that project. We are pretty much locked in, and I'm going to finalize this on Monday, but we're looking at a referendum on September 29th, Tuesday, September 29th. That gets us clear all of the early voting windows and everything for the November general election. It's been a lot. We're trying to figure it all out because there's so many notice requirements, town meeting, getting all that in, but we're trying to get all of that scheduled. And we do have a plan to get there. So, we'll have public hearing and town meeting, through September. All those dates, looking towards that September 29th is really when we're going to be before the town, at referendum asking for approval of funding to do the project.
You wanna explain what the option day is, because that's a new concept, I think, right, in town,
The
August 4th, isn't it?
August 4th, yeah, so what we're trying to do, the SBC, we need to acquire project approval from the town for a grant application for a specific project. We can't submit a grant application for multiple projects. We have to have funding approval for a specific project to be able to put a grant application, to receive that eligibility for reimbursement. We are developing these project options because of people have different views of what they think a consolidated school should be in town. We're trying to provide variety. So we provided the 3 options, an addition, renovation, and hall, and then 2 new project options. And we put this out early. It's been out for a couple of months now, what those project options are. We've been soliciting as much feedback from the public as we can. So this August 4th date is really the opportunity for people to come in, state their address, like their place ranked choice voting is what we're anticipating for these, so that they can identify what their preferred consolidated school project option would be that they want to see the referendum. And then that'll be used to guide the SBC in their ultimately in their decision making towards recommending a project. Towards the Board of Finance and Board of Selectmen. So we're trying to give a couple of dates. We know it's the summer. That's why we're trying to do it. We're gonna check addresses so that you can be a registered voter in town. So we're working towards it. We'll have more detail on that and a mailer going out as soon as I have that date finalized. But as you can imagine, we're trying to figure out use of space with 15 other town events and agencies and making sure that we can do it without really making the registrars hate us, or the town clerk hate us.
Yes, it's the primary on August 11th.
Well, that was originally what we were targeting for the second date of that polling.
Okay.
Right, but we can't do it then,
Yeah.
so. We do know August 4th is likely a hard date, the second one, we'll confirm the other days in the next week or so, and have a real public upcoming events for the SBC to be aware of.
Well, Jim,
Push.
if you're asking us for some, I mean, I wanna hear what people have to say, my sense of this, if you're asking us for, first look kind of reaction about
Now,
if we're
the
on the
next
right
week?
track or anything.
Absolutely.
It's really good work, what's here, what I'm seeing. And there's plenty to take in and really kind of mull over and maybe, put up against what some of our recent, what our region budget histories
Yep.
have been against it. But it's what's heartening to me, well, the 20-year bond is heartening to me, but also I think that's a good premise. But also, just, when this really, how far you go before, an impact really even shows up. And then the other thing that's just huge for me right now, thinking about how much trouble we've had in the last 2 years to get budgets passed, which is the first time in memory that we've had that problem. We, is the idea that there's so much offset in the operating, which we know intellectually is gonna happen with a consolidated school, but to see the numbers is really helpful about how that plays into debt service and everything else. Because, this year in particular, as far as as deeply as we're cutting the operating budgets, and particularly the K through 8, it feels like, we're just rolling close to the bone because of the revenue picture.
Yeah.
Hopefully along the way, there'll be some good news on the revenue side that we've really been missing for, quite a while. And definitely we've flattened out now, as you know, in the last couple of years. So given that, and with a hope that there will be some activity, of course, in this period of time that helps the other side of the ledger, I'm really heartened by it.
Yeah, and we're continuing to refine these, and we'll refine again with the selected, recommended project that we're advancing. Our AE team will have another third-party estimate done of, the project. We're gonna refine, obviously, that fixing some other factors. We're exploring geothermal because, at 93% reimbursement, the buyback on it is a year, 1.2 years, to where we generate $50,000 a year in operational savings just in energy consumption for the life of the building beyond that,
The gift
So-
keeps on giving.
So that's, where those aren't in the budgets yet. We will refine if it looks like that's probably where we're gonna go, because the numbers are it's ridiculously favorable. Yeah, so, and
Is
same
there-
thing with operational budgets, like the Board of Ed hasn't finalized those numbers yet. We're close, I think, as to what they're anticipating for staffing reductions and a consolidated building, so.
Yeah,
But it's in the wheelhouse that you're looking at,
okay.
not a little more or less, depending on which enrollment we
Wait,
get.
Bill, Lisa, are there any, I know it's really hard because you're not looking at the documents, but honestly, there would be a lot of drilling down to really look at the documents and, just wondering from what you've heard, if you have anything you'd like to say?
No, I thought it was pretty well put together. Seems like a win-win to me.
Yeah, Billy?
Bill, we can't hear you. You're muted.
I'm really encouraged with the possibilities that could be part of this new project from a standpoint of, like energy management and so forth. That if you were looking at a $50,000 a year savings, you could be looking at 2 to 3 million savings over the period of the first 50 years of the school.
Yeah, it's, again, things like geothermal, they have a higher upfront cost, which is why it can be detrimental for projects like this without this level of available
State
state
share.
reimbursement. Yeah.
Yep.
It negates a lot of it.
Eric, thoughts? Jason?
It's a lot of numbers.
And that's part of our dilemma.
Oh, that's bad.
For me to give actual feedback, I'd have to go through it a lot more, and I have to give it a stack. So
You do, what I will say, what I
I
will
have
say,
questions, but I don't even know if they're applicable yet, because like this is projections, yes. Like it like more than projections, like you're definitely not reading tea leaves or animal entrails, it's like,
That it's based on
Right.
from, it's
Right.
from the financial advisor, done a
Yeah.
debt certificate, so that the project costs, the financing numbers, those are set. What's not are, but we know that $1 million is a potential offset, it's an offset from the reserve savings. We're working on refining the Board of Ed operational savings
Mhm.
numbers. We will have those very shortly.
but so like in theory, numbers could change. I'm not even saying like it's because of anything foreseeable or not, it's just, they could.
Well, we can change the way we structure the debt if you guys, if there's a conversation to be had where you think a 25-year term is necessary or.
Not like, and I'm not, see, like, I'm not even going there, but like, I'm saying like,
But the project budgets
like,
are what
it
would
is
be
what it
going before
is.
the town, yes. So those are identified, those are based on the three options that have been developed by the architectural.
And you explained earlier about, the factors that you've got in those conservative choices, so generally on most of your projections, if
so-
anything, it would be.
I will correct that one, Sam. The one thing we didn't add is geothermal.
Which
Which,
is aggressive. I don't even not like geothermal, it's expensive and aggressive, and
so
I wish I had.
not much, not nearly as much as you would think here. It's actually not, the Delta's a pretty quick buy-in, turnoff versus fossil fuel. The actual project cost difference between systems for, I don't have the numbers with me, I apologize, but it was,
You can
8
work
million
a
versus
percentage.
9 million.
Yeah, you can
like
work a
for-
percentage for me on that.
It's well within the range of what we can accommodate with the budget without seeing a significant
I was
increase, but
surprised
that's
when
the shift that.
when I saw
that
the
could
numbers
happen
the other
moving
night.
forward. Just in the project budget, beyond that, unless we change the way we structure the debt, that's what we're looking at for numbers, so. And what I will say is, I am happy to continue this conversation again. I just don't want to get ahead of the fact that the SBC hasn't been able to discuss.
No, that's okay,
This
we'd like to
publicly
hear
as
what
well.
their reactions are.
That's why like my questions are sort of, they would,
And I
they would be
understand
in
that.
advance, and it's like not, I don't know whether you can answer them or not, or. And I don't even have them, they're like swirling around in my head, I don't even.
Oh, you didn't write it
And-
down? Good, this is gonna take some of those back.
And
have
tell
to
you what,
write it
Eric,
down.
Alright, well, on that.
Remember them, send them to us. Yeah, email me. We will get, like we'll tell everybody in the community, if there's an answer available, we'll get it to you. That's our job, is to get as much of this fleshed out as we can and rely on, get as much certainty. We've confirmed we have the special legislation, that's confirmed. We've concerned the early childhood additional 15%, so that 93%.
Mhm.
93.33%, that is our rate, which is great.
Hey,
Um,
Steph.
Yes,
No, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, go ahead, Lisa.
I just wanted to say, when I think about after living here 30 years and I think about the foresight I want to say our forefathers had in town to build a school, I think we owe it to ourselves to grow responsibly, and we need to come up with a solution. And, as technology has leaped so far ahead since the last 100 years, I mean, I think to me, I'm always puzzled by what is the threat to half of the town or less than half of the town? What is it that they don't trust about what you're saying and all the research that has been done over the last 5 years, really? So as a member, I'm just puzzled how this doesn't sound like a good, what got us here is not going to get us there, as we move to the next 100 years. So I think to point out, to I guess you can say the forefathers' credit, they had some foresight to say, we're going to build something that's going to last 100 years. And we're hopeful that the people of the town are smart enough to figure out what they're going to do for the next 100 years. So I just wanted to say that because, I love this town and I have a generation behind me that I'm hopeful is going to enjoy this town. And I think sometimes in the conversations that I've heard over the last 30 years, I think that's missing. And I think we all have to, I think we all live in this town. This is a very, very, people have lived in this town a long time, and there's a lot of longevity. And I think there needs to be some thought about how we go another 100 years. I really think that that's why we're all here tonight and why we all run for the volunteer elected positions. And so I want to say that I think it's important. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Lisa. Jay, anything?
I'm in a similar position to Eric. A lot of my questions that I have right now, I don't know if they're applicable to this specific forum, but one
Okay.
question that I keep coming back to, and this may not even be the right forum, but say the town decides to go with the break fix alternative, just fix the buildings as they are, do what they can.
They failed to pass a consolidated school project.
Yeah,
We're break fix.
we decide to go that route, obviously the reimbursement's not as high, and it's based on percentage. With a new building, we wouldn't have the same issues of not knowing what's behind the sheetrock. Say with the repairs, we get in there, we start demolishing so that we can build up. If the scope changes, once we get into it, is there a possibility that the reimbursement changes or they don't cover some of it because they could say, well, that's not actually part of what we thought it was gonna be?
So I'll try to respond. There's two parts of this. One, no, we find some, so the real answer to this is about, our job is about, part of the decision-making process here is about mitigating risk, right? Each of the project options are gonna have slightly different risks.
Yeah.
For example, renovating hall is a 100-year-old building. There is contingency in all of the budgets. It will not change, if we uncover something, it will not change the state's response to us. It will not change the project approval. It will, has the potential to eat up more of that contingency I talked about. Or God forbid something really bad happens, we try to avoid that. So there is risk associated with that. The project budget is well built. It has more than appropriate contingency for that type of risk. But it is a consideration for the town. We want to promote a project that will have the fewest unanswerable questions, right?
Yeah.
And we've gotten what we can. One of the other big, considerations in this is, the only questionable reimbursement that we can't definitively know before you vote is on the addition renovation of hall option. To qualify for renovation status as part of the grant application, it has to be proven that project cost is cheaper than the cost of new construction. It is not based on the budgets that we have prepared here. So with that said, they are close. We don't know how OGA will approach that if that's the option that we put forth to the town. So there's a risk there. There's a liability there. It could be solved with additional special legislation as well. But that's not going to come before our current special legislation expires. That's something that would have to be pursued if we decide to advance that project it's something we'll have to pursue, and it's an unknown. So, you know, the new site opportunities, there's due diligence we're working on the site currently. So until we get geotech out there still remains that unknown. That we are working to solve ahead of referendum because we can. It's not a state agency, you know, opinion on something. So, so yes, we're trying to avoid, or, you know, ultimately the town has to make a decision on how much risk or what it values. And then that'll inform what project option
Yeah,
gets advanced and how much, what the risk tolerance is. So,
yeah, and I didn't mean to infer that the SBC wasn't trying to mitigate risk.
oh, no, I
I
didn't.
Okay. Yeah, I just didn't.
No, it's something I should have, you know, mentioned.
Having been in the government for considerable amount of my adult life, I know that how sometimes they can offer something and then when it changes, they be like, well, I didn't mean that.
That's the beauty of this special legislature. We're locked in up to a project of $110 million, which is more than the budgets that you'll see. So we're not trying to hit that.
Yeah,
The new building area is pretty much identical to the combined building area we have in the schools now currently. There are, I think, a handful, 4 additional classrooms, I think, above and beyond what we're currently in now. And part of that is also the ability to future-proof the project, right? It's so that if we hit that 519 projected enrollment, we have space for those kids. If we don't, it does allow us the flexibility to continue to grow. But at 93% reimbursement, the cost of the classroom is about $50,000 or $80,000 to the town after all is said and done.
Mhm.
So that's the direction and that's why it's being pursued. There's no extravagancy in this plan. It's serving what we have for students now with some additional classroom space for projected enrollment increase. Beyond that,
Which is just,
that's it. It's an efficient use of space because new construction or a significant renovation, you can be more efficient than buildings were designed 100 years ago or added onto multiple different times. So
Bill,
How far out is it practical to estimate future pupil population?
well, the requirement of the state is it's you're the highest enrollment over a 10-year projection. So that's what we looked at, or that's what our demographer provided. It's a 10-year projection. The highest calculated enrollment, I think, was like year 8 or something like that, which is where 519 hits. Incidentally, 10 years is about as far as the architectural team was willing to phase out the renovations, because going beyond that
there's too many.
there's too many variables and it's not practical. And by the time, if we're looking at 20 years before we're doing something, we're basically back at square one again, where a system's gonna need to be replaced.
Yeah.
You know, we're planning for it to be replaced already, so. 10 years is 10 years, to answer your question for the enrollment projection, Bill.
Yeah,
Jim,
that's good. I was thinking that, you do have to anticipate growth, and I didn't know how far out science of whatever sort would assist us in doing that. That's what I was curious about.
So
thank you.
what I will say is, we're releasing the stuff at the meeting on Wednesday. I am happy to come back in. I know you guys have had a long budget season, but I am happy to continue this conversation on behalf of the SBC at any time. So what I will promise to do is to share all of this information directly with you so that you can distribute it. If you guys want to have a follow-up, I'm happy to accommodate
Thanks.
at a future meeting.
Thanks for doing
If
the
you, it
first,
might be a
the
special or a
first,
budget meeting, whatever, but.
first outline here, because that's good.
So yeah, whatever we can do, if you have questions, I'll share that with you, if you, and I know you're missing half the board, so,
Yeah,
if they have questions after we share that information, or after they watch this video, compile and send, or just send directly, and,
Okay.
we'll do what we can to answer them. We'll definitely see you on August 20th.
okay. What is it that you need back exactly?
Uh,
This one?
No, you guys can keep, I just need these things. This, and this, and this. Thank you, sir. This.
But these we can keep.
Yes, you can keep those.
In the bag.
I appreciate it, guys, and thank you for,
I never had that problem.
oh, I haven't done that in a while. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, so please, I'll follow up with you following our meeting on Wednesday and reach out with any
Thank you.
questions.
Really appreciate it.
No, thank you guys for being here, for helping us just work the problem. Thank you.
Thank you.
Let's go to item 2. So the Emergency Services Facilities Building Committee request, and we've got Andy and Ralph here to talk about it, and one of the chiefs.
Yes, I don't know how much background you're going to, Andy Marco, I'm speaking on as the chairman of the ESFBC.
Yeah, thank
And-
you guys for being patient through the first one. We just,
Fascinating.
that was our first time, so.
Great enough,
Yeah,
good,
thank you.
good stuff. We saw a glimpse of it, but this is wonderful. Wonderful preparation and information. Yes, the ESFBC is asking for the Board of Finance to consider reallocating monies that were targeted for design and engineering into actual groundbreaking construction. That's the basic in a nutshell. There's been some changes in the landscape that you may or may not be aware about. One of the significant changes is that we have found that through our enrollment in the Capital Region Council of Governments, that design and engineering services are available through our membership, which is not insignificantly paid. I don't know, I forgot how much, $15,000, something to belong to CCM and CERCOG. And through that membership, we are getting design and engineering services that are credible and quite robust and relevant. So that reduces our need for that. The monies that that we'd like you, it would probably have to go back to the town because those monies were voted on for design and engineering. I don't know how many of you are aware of a US Department of Agriculture grant that was presented to us to renovate Station 13 as an emergency operations center. In order to do that, it's still under negotiation, so we don't have exact numbers as to what might be needed, but there will be some money needed to be spent on time and material to prepare that site for any work to be done through the US Department of Agriculture.
As a what, did you say, an emergency?
It's actually, it's a grant for EOC, an emergency operations center, but also a firehouse, a viable building. The work that was done through the engineering firms from the Regional Council of Government, Capital Region, indicate that that building is viable for renovation and can be used for the purposes and meet the, I'd say, short-term needs, probably at least 10 years of need. It's not a 50-year plan, but it does coincide with the consultants' work that was done for maintaining our current service standards for emergency service operations. So that's the basic ask, to reallocating those funds. Well, we do have, I mean, there's a lot of background, there's 3 or 4 years of conversation about this in Board of Finance minutes and CIP minutes. I don't know how deep we want to dive into that for your consideration. There is a pressing need for this as the fire departments are losing their ability to store the town-owned vehicles in the various local fire departments. Mansfield, Stafford have been very gracious and helping, along with the local businesses, Becker Construction specifically, to store the trucks in undercover and safely. Those are being lost. The towns can no longer help us, and the Becker operation can no longer help us either. So we have a pressing need and, that's the ask. So what I would welcome questions, probably rather than just go on long diatribes, or Ralph, do you have something to?
Yeah, I'd like to add a couple comments here.
Could I just ask a question?
Yes.
It's a real quick one. What is the figure we're talking about?
We don't know exactly, and I don't mean to
Maybe
be so,
this is.
I don't mean to be so vague, but the US Department of Agriculture grant, I think is, I wanna say 550,000. Alex can speak to it a little more precisely. They are actively negotiating with state legislators to include Senator Blumenthal, Senator Murphy, Congressman Courtney, along with our local representatives of Nucio and Gordon, to really cement this and find out exactly what the US Department of Agriculture is willing to pay for. We have a strong plan along, again, in concert with the plans given to us by CROG. And one of the questions was the original conversation with the US Department of Agriculture was that they wouldn't do any site work. As you know, one of the problems with the mold was drainage. We have a solid plan, don't do with me, but the engineer, town engineer, public works, and other parties, Mr. Toulis as an engineer to weigh in as well, have come up with a solid plan to aggressively change the drainage, so water infiltration won't be a problem anymore. When the site was done back in originally 1981 or 2, the site work wasn't done probably the way it should have been timed. And then as ground has changed and water flow has changed over time, now we are addressing that. And an initial outlay of money, somewhere around $25,000, just to keep the numbers easy, would be needed for time and material, and Public Works would be able to perform that work.
Okay. Ralph, what were you were gonna add some stuff.
Well, the key priority, and particularly for Chief Moore, is we have to find a place to put our apparatus.
Right.
It's that simple. As far as Station 13's building is concerned, it's not a 100-year building by any stretch, but it's salvageable. And if we can use the EOC grant money to do the interior and the envelope, which is all I think that grant is, and Alex could correct me if I'm wrong here. That grant will have nothing to do with the exterior, the site work. We can do that with Public Works.
EOC?
Emergency Operations Center.
Okay, thank you.
That's what the grant was.
Right, I just get lost.
And EOC is also a firehouse and a lot of other things. It can be a lot of different.
Acronyms are annoying to people who don't work in a particular area.
That's the other thing.
Well, and everyone has different acronyms,
As they.
even hard as they might work. Another.
Select.
I just make a quick comment on it, or two comments real quick.
Jump in.
The emergency operations center is important with it. The other part of that is this staffing, being able to move back up.
Yes.
Oh, and that is our key.
I was just gonna ask.
That is
about
a huge need right now. If we have a winter like we did this year, that camper has served us now for 4 years. We're going on 4 years since we bought that camper. It's 13 years old now, and it is not gonna hold another winter like that. It struggled, heating was hard. It's done good for what we needed to for the first couple of years, but it's definitely starting to show its age.
Just for the Board of Public Enlightenment, that our full-time staff basically lives in a camper right behind the fire station in South Wellington. That is not a long-term solution, and it's may become difficult to retain qualified staff if that continues.
And just to add, Crux, design work at this point. We lose a day in that building so that we can be code compliant as far as health and safety for a habitable space that we're going to create there for that set. So we don't have concerns there. If we're gonna lose some space, we can't have the same number of beds, but at least we can get our people in more comfortable quarters and get our equipment back under one roof in town.
Okay,
And I think Mike,
Mike, I know Mike wants to jump
you
in.
can certainly enlighten you all about the grants, because
But-
he's been chasing them.
Okay, Mike, I was gonna ask another question. Mike, do you wanna add something?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm glad the conversation came around to the staffing. I think there are multiple priorities here, but the one that concerns me the most is trying to not have another winter where the staff is working out of the camper. I think the staff and maybe their bargaining unit have been very patient with us because it was somewhat of an emergency with the mold. But the situation is at least undesirable. And particularly, there's not a lot of room down in South Wellington. The camper's very close to the edge of the road. The firefighters, even in the winter, have to get out of the camper. They work long shifts. They get out of the camper if there's a call in the middle of the night, go through the snow into the building, get in the ambulance or a fire truck. I think, it's worse than inconvenient. And I don't want to say, I'm not trying to say on the record it's dangerous, but it's definitely not the way we should be treating our employees. So I think they really need to be undercover. A little clarity on the grant. The grant is $515,000, I believe, at this time. And as everyone has noted, and if you're following this in the meetings, you'll know that we've had a lot of difficulty with trying to get clear answers from Department of Ag on the various different purchasing requirements and design requirements that they have in place for using the grant money. It adds a huge amount of bureaucracy and cost to the project, and would essentially take, we have an estimate that we could do the drainage and get the firefighters inside a building into clean, fresh quarters, put the bathrooms back. And keep in mind, we're not talking about new plumbing under the floors, any of that stuff. We're using the same location for a toilet that was there before. Basically, we're taking the same toilet that's in storage, installing it back on a freshly painted or sealed floor onto the same plumbing. The plumbing in the walls has to be replaced because the walls got ripped out because of the mold. But basically, nothing fancy, just putting in safe, properly conditioned sleeping spaces for the crews because they are 24/7, and putting in enough room for them to have a kitchenette and the things you would need. This is not a new fire station. It's not an addition to the fire station. It's a very solid stopgap measure to get them undercover and to make something viable, as Andy said, for a period of years that's reasonable, but allows us to continue the rest of the larger planning process that's going on with the committee and with the study that was presented a couple of months ago to the town. And that feeds into the other grant conversations we've been talking about, where we have an application out for $12.5 million, which would be obviously a full construction project, potentially on Old Farms Road. So there's a lot of things in play, but what we're really trying to get to right here is that this $515,000 grant can potentially do this project if we can get all of the ducks lined up with the approvals. We're supposed to be having a meeting any day, which they haven't scheduled yet, and I'm going to remind them about, with the supervisor from the Department of Ag, who believes that we can get some progress on the grant applicability. And we feel very confident that at least this portion that was just talked about, the materials to do the drainage around the foundation, will very likely be reimbursed by the grant. And so I'm interpreting, because I did not participate in this discussion in the facilities committee meeting, but I'm interpreting that I think what the committee is asking for is to have access to 20 some, I guess Andy said 25,000, to be able to buy the materials and get the drainage part of this done. And that would put us in a step moving forward while we figure out the eligibility, and we would likely be getting reimbursed for that money by the grant. So we can't guarantee it right now, but we're hoping that this is essentially just front money that would be reimbursed. So that's sort of what I know from the grant side, because I am trying to keep the pressure on all of these organizations to get us straight answers.
I might have missed this, but why now? Is that because it's good timing to expand the potential of the grant covering a future project? Is that why you want to go, why you want?
I don't think I understand your question.
What, well, it's 25,000 to dig a ditch or whatever, do the, right?
The 520, the 25 is to do the drainage work,
Right. to do the
525
drainage.
is the rest of the building.
No, I understand that. My question is, why the 25 now?
Because it's important to get that done before we start working on the building.
Okay, so because we know that that's going to be done before we have contractors or anyone
Correct.
else.
And in the initial
We're assuming
conversation,
that.
and Mike can expand on that, in the initial conversations that Mike and Alex had, drainage was not being covered, and that was said by a representative of the Department of Agriculture. Drainage won't be covered in this, so we said, okay, what can we do? We're going to the Board of Finance to ask. Subsequent conversation said, well, maybe it can be, but like the answer still could be, it's not gonna be, but rather than wait, because there is a pressing need for this, and the money is all, I mean,
And winter's
the
coming.
money's coming. So if we don't wanna do the project, then we have to give the money back, which
Okay,
doesn't seem like a good use of taxpayer funds to me. I think using the original 200,000 for actual construction makes sense. It's not adding to the budget, it's not changing anything. So that seems to be to me, a good use of my tax dollars.
Lisa, you had a question or a point?
I do. I'm a little confused by one point here. I heard there was a lot of things I heard, but 12.5 million for Old Farms Road. So why aren't we focused on the 12.5 million to put a building there for all the trucks? Like, why aren't we just consolidating fire departments and putting it on the hill? And you may all be rolling your eyes saying, oh God, we already talked about all this, but I don't really understand why we're going backwards for a building that it doesn't make sense to keep the fire departments separate. It makes sense to join the fire departments and build the team.
Andy, can I take this one first since I applied for the 12.5?
Absolutely.
Okay, so Lisa, it's an excellent question. It is absolutely. And the reason is the time pressing issue. The grant for the 500 and some thousand already exists. That was applied for like 3 or 4 years ago. Yeah, well, three plus maybe. So it's already sort of in hand. We're just having some trouble negotiating the final applicability. One of the things that actually, in classic government style, one of the things that the delay has actually helped us with is July 1st, some of the rules were changed to make it easier to include exterior work, which is why now we think we will get the drainage reimbursed because the rules were lessened. And so that's a move in our favor on it. The reason that we're talking about this when there's also the possibility of the larger thing is that larger process is still ongoing and will take time. If even we're lucky enough to get that $12.5 million grant, which I think statistically is somewhat unlikely the first time you apply for that grant, looking at the history of that grant. If we were to get it, you still would be talking a couple of years out before you get design and bidding and start construction, maybe another year or two before you occupy. So that would be, say, 4 more years while the ambulance crew is sleeping in a camper. We're trying to use the grant that is available to us now and would be minimal or hopefully no impact on the Willington tax bill. to get the EMTs back undercover, to get our fire trucks back to the fire station. And like we, in the summertime, we've been keeping one of the trucks in the public works garage some of the time, but then they lose that bay for working on their trucks. And in the winter, we can't do it because they have to have all the snow plows undercover to go out in the middle of the night. So we really need to get this, in my mind, and particularly in my job as first selectman, is a priority about a short-term solution to get us back in a safer, more functional status while the larger planning process and these bigger grants go on. Like, say, for example, we don't get the 12.5 million. We got nothing right now.
Even if we did, we still have to find a home for staff and equipment by winter. And, you know, Mother Nature will be here quicker than government generally acts, and that's not good.
So I'm
But my
glad you
next-
asked it, Lisa, because I think it's a question other people in town either have or are going to have.
But the problem that I have is, so again, I've been here 30 years, and the issue with the fire department has always been that they're like 3 satellites and a lot of differences of opinion. And through this, I've seen growth where people have come together, which is better for the town. And I fear that supporting Route 32 continues to keep us separated and fractured as a fire department. And so, yeah, I'm struggling with it, but thank you.
So
I'd like to
Lisa,
speak-
just if I could ask, as the short-term solution, what do you see? Are you saying that the EMTs should be inside the Willington Hill Firehouse? The problem is wherever one organization or 2 organization or 3 buildings, we don't have a space for the EMTs right now. That's the thing I'm trying to solve. Unless you do a renovation at Willington Hill, which would again maybe cost us at least a couple $100,000 to put a living space into the Willington Hill Fire Department, and then you would lose, possibly some other functionality there, and you still wouldn't have all of our fire trucks undercover because you don't have any more garage space.
No, I understand that. I wonder, like, I guess my question is, are you all saying that Mansfield, Tolland, they're really just going to say, okay, you all got to go and your trucks have to stay outside and get weathered? Or are you saying to us that we've outworn our welcome, even though we helped them tremendously over the years? I mean, really, what is the pressure point of asking them for a little bit more time so that we can really plan to have a compound or a campus up on the hill across the street where the plan is expected to go? I mean, for me, this is not different. I've never been different over the years I've sat on the board. I want to grow responsibly. And to me, the better solution is to be at the hill or wherever, what side of the street, whatever it is. And to not take the risk and go forward seems like a real shame. And I think that our partners, Tolland, Mansfield, even if they are impatient, I think we've done a lot for them in the last 12, 13 years. And I think they need to keep offering that support until we can come up with a plan that puts the whole fire department together, which is going to be a lot better for the town. And that's, and I'm sorry I have the history, but I got the history and that's how I feel.
Don't apologize. Don't apologize for having the history, Lisa. This is the important conversation, but I think the point I'm trying to make is even if Mansfield or Tolland or whoever else is generous to store our truck, that means the truck is out of town. So we have to go get it. So you have a lot of delay. It means like last year, they were switching ambulances back and forth during the winter. If one ambulance broke down or was on a call, you can't staff the second one because you have to send someone to Stafford to get it.
I do
so
understand.
there's a lot of delay there. And
I
it's,
just
and
don't-
none of these things resolve where we put the EMTs who have been in a camper for 3 winters.
I understand all that. I just think that the reason they are in a camper for 3 winters is because this town has doesn't because what's happening with the school, or the potential what will happen with the school if we don't come together and grow responsibly, is what's going to happen. That the school scenario could look like the fire department scenario, and the Band-Aid approach, which is what I've heard Bill talk about, and all y'all have talked about it. It's like nothing ever changes if nothing ever changes. And I think Wellington is on the precipice of really changing and evolving despite the Debbie Downers, or I don't want to point fingers at anybody, but despite the people that are afraid of what responsible growth can look like. That's a better way to say it. So that's what I'm saying. I'm wondering if we're really at the precipice of really changing and just throwing Band-Aids at it. It just has been this past 30 years has been that it's the same repeated behavior. And we're
But
still
this is
talking
different.
about.
Wait, you
This
guys,
is
could I
different.
sort of,
I'd like to.
could the chair sort of take over for a second?
Yeah.
I just wanna acknowledge what Lisa's expressing a longstanding frustration, because we have spent 6 figures in the various, mold remediation and, we've come up with town money for the last several years to address problems at 32. So you're looking at that, hungering for the longer term solution to start getting underway. I get that. I'd like to let Alex say something, because he's kind of, he's been trying to break through. And then I want to go back to Bill, because you have a point, and then we'll come back.
So just 2 quick things. One, the apparatus at Mansfield and Holland and Stafford, we did ask to keep the trucks there. Mansfield had 2 trucks that were out on refurb, and that's why we were able to get into a bay for last winter with an ambulance. Stafford moved their police department into the bay that we were using. And Holland, we have not been able to get a truck over there. They've been fortunate and allowed us to borrow a truck. But Holland has not had bay space for us to be able to put anything over there.
Thanks, Alex. Bill, did you have a point? You wanted to.
Do I ever have a point? I just wanted to redirect
Would
to
you?
Lisa that, like, it is a short-term solution, and although we have had a lot of long-term problems, unless you have a better one for the next 4 months, you can't cut off your nose to spite your face.
Andy?
The consultant study did not say that a single station solution was arguably the best. In fact, a single station solution, correct me where I'm wrong, had a very, very slight degradation in overall service standards, because it doesn't speak well. It doesn't do a rapid response to the north end of town being the 84, which has the potential for a great deal of growth. As you know, some of the larger landholders in town have significant acreage up there that could very well be developed in the next few years. So a 2-station solution, or rather a 3-station solution, under the consultant's response, is a viable way of doing business in town. Now, the committee, because of these they're distractions, but they're good ones, that we have this US Department of Agriculture grant that we did not know we were gonna get when the committee was formed. And it is part of our charge. If you look, the committee was formed to address immediate need as well as long-term need.
And.
Well,
Go ahead.
All right, let me finish my thought. So so to say that, I know, as well, if you agree, you believe that a station on the hill is the best option. We have not presented that to the townspeople yet. We're getting there. We had a public outreach. The people that showed up there were very concerned that Station 13 was not optional. They all lived up in the north section of town. They were concerned. One resident in particular was very concerned about the ISO rating changing from a 9 to a 10, and the property insurance rates going up, because it's known that fire station is no longer operational. which changes things under the Insurance Services Office, evaluation of property. The townspeople that we met that night were quite adamant that get that station fixed.
I was at that event and I would say there was a larger share of people from the north end of town at
Correct.
that session. And I think what Lisa's point is, and what the consultants, pointed to was, that's not the most central place to, if you were going to do a large station, consolidate the number of vehicles you need and put the
Right.
staff together and go more, basically more pro staff and, or paid staff in the future. That it's just not it's not the most central location. Anyone's gonna have an issue with insurance rates depending on where the focus ends up being. And I know it's not decided yet, but I guess I would caution us not to go either way there. I think what we're rubbing up against here is we have a real short-term problem for services, emergency services in town in the next few months that we need to, once again, deal with. And I know we have this, that's why we're all kind of, I mean, Board of Finance has had several experiences with dealing with short-term expensive problems that seem to be moving us away from, getting something bigger done. But we're not, it's not really an either or. I guess the thing I wanna turn us to discuss a little bit with Mike and the gentleman in the room and is what is the precedent here that we're setting as far as redirecting money that's already been identified for a purpose that I think probably involved a town meeting and a vote. I
Yes,
think this would involve a town meeting and a vote.
right, and that's,
So-
He did bring that up.
that's what I've asked for.
Like practice.
That's what I
Right, but
started.
I'm not sure that, I just kinda, I guess I wanna revisit enough of, a little bit of the history on that and recognizing that it sounds like there's something we're gonna have to do in the short term.
I don't,
At some point.
I don't see why as times and conditions change, don't we redirect money constantly in order to meet different needs? I mean, we take money out of reserves, we put it back into reserves. We're constantly adjusting the budget to meet immediate needs. And we did not know that design and engineering, so I don't know why prior administrations did not take advantage of CERCOG. I credit Selectman McCoo for discovering that and taking advantage of that. We probably could have been much further along had we known that those opportunities exist. It existed for quite some time. That is a significant change that we did not know about. Now we want to capitalize on a grant that we got, which again, that is taxpayer money from a federal level. And I think we should take advantage of it. There is no, this single station solution that the consultant did not weigh those options. That he made no, weight on which one was best. That's up to the townspeople to decide.
It's a political decision.
It's a decision by the legislature. So soon we will be in a position to be able to present those options. Even spending a portion of taxpayer money, which has already been allocated for Station 13, maybe not in the guise that we're asking for, but still for that station. And this is, a building, that building was built, it had a 25-year expected lifespan, it's lasted 45. If it gets completely redone with new drainage, and it is a viable station to house equipment and personnel, and an emergency operations center, that's a good thing for the town. It benefits every single taxpayer with a very minimal outlay of my money, which I think makes sense. That makes sense to me. Now, let's say the townspeople agree that a two-station solution is the best solution for the town. I'm not saying that that's gonna happen, but one on Wellington Hill, or a three-station really, a satellite down in South Wellington, and and one down on Route 32. If the townspeople agree to that, the money we've invested in this small steel building is still not wasted. It's not.
I see,
it
I
hasn't-
understand what you're
Hasn't been
saying,
abandoned.
but I was at that
Yeah,
same.
but
At that same session, and what I remember hearing when the consultants spoke and when people asked specific questions about it, was that they they were recommending that they thought the better recommendation as far as use of money and affordability in the town was a larger consolidated station with a satellite, but not two that were of the same kind of scale. That's the way I understood him. But you know, I know that that there's a lot of, you know, I don't know that this is a time to really have the discussion about the future, even though I think it's part of this decision. Lisa, I'm sorry, was Bill, I think Bill's hand up was first, I'll come back. Bill?
Yeah, 2 points. First off, it seems like we've done this kind of reallocation of money for the for the school committee. So it doesn't seem like it's, the first time for doing this. And two,
What do you mean? Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
and two, didn't we have a referendum earlier in the year, or maybe it was last year, about changing the threshold of size of project that the selectmen could approve up to $25,000?
I don't know that it was 25 that we ended up with, was
I
it?
think it was.
I don't know, I can't remember that. Mike, do you
Yeah.
remember?
I can answer that. The limit, the $20,000 limit exists, but that's a limit on purchase before open bidding. That was not that the Board of Selectmen could reallocate funds. So this still would, because it was approved in the CIP plan previously for a different purpose. I think the interpretation was made that because it was approved for design and engineering, or design and consultants, or something to that effect. I don't remember the exact words. It was not approved for actual work. I think the interpretation of that is that we need to get approval by the people who approved that budget.
Okay.
That changed, that money was actually previously in CIP, 2 CIP cycles ago, I believe. As the same 200,000 was a year 2 number a few cycles ago for Wellington Hill Fire Department for the second phase of design and engineering at 25 Old Farms. The first phase was the 110,000 that has been reallocated, was closed out this year in the budget process. And the second phase would have been the 200, but that got reassigned to this committee. But again, it got reassigned for essentially like research and consultants and all that, which is how we paid for the consultant whose report just came out. So, sorry, that's a lot of history, but it was reassigned, but it wasn't assigned necessarily to getting work product done, which is why I think we have to get approval at a minimum at Board of Finance and possibly town meeting.
Okay, thank
So
you.
I live in the north side of town. And I want to know the facility down on 32 didn't it have 2 ambulances and 1 fire truck?
Who? Us?
32.
What
yeah,
is
well, I was in station 13.
We
What,
have two
What
ambulances.
apparatus where it was in?
What apparatus?
at that main station?
More than that.
2 fire, an ambulance and 2 fire trucks and a pickup truck.
And the
49 and 213? What do you have on 213?
A fire truck, an ambulance and the phone trailer.
okay, and then would
go
those
ahead.
trucks go back into Route 32?
So the plan would be, yes, so the plan would be because of the redesign, we can fit both ambulances, the rescue truck and the fire truck. And then it would be the phone trailer and an engine down at the south station for now.
So
Okay.
you're gonna now, so with this whole grant, you're gonna be able to put 4 trucks where you used to have 3 trucks and
We
4
had-
people or 2 people sleeping.
So we did have 4 trucks there, one just, because it was a pickup truck because of the way.
Well, the
our-
pickup truck doesn't matter to anybody really. It's just better for you guys. It doesn't help save lives. So the 4
and
trucks,
usually does the first responder.
the
does-
4 trucks are gonna go back in the building. There were 4 trucks there. There's 4 trucks going back in and 2 people that are gonna sleep in it. Is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
Lisa, I just wanna go to, I wanna go to Ralph in the room. Bill, if you can hold your question a minute. Okay,
I don't have a question.
Very, very important point to make here.
could you speak a little louder?
What's the name of this committee? What's the middle word in the title of this committee? Is facilities. Okay? We have been talking about 2 buildings, not 2 departments. That part is outside of our scope as far as the organization is concerned. This committee is not charged with developing the total organization as much as it is looking at what's the best configuration of facilities. Now, granted, in order to do that, the organization is a key component, but that's not our primary charge. Right now, all we want to do is get a building habitable for both people and equipment. So we can work on the rest of our charge. But winter is coming, and like I said, it's gonna be here quicker than the pace of government. So let's just settle this. The property that that building sits on is marketable. If we ultimately wind up with a single station on the hill, that piece with that building can be cut off and sold. You know,
Or it could become a satellite, but still,
or it could be a satellite.
yeah,
But we're not talking about continuing 2 departments as much as we're focused on facilities needed for the short term.
okay,
And the long range plan is under development, sure, but like I said, winter's coming.
yeah. I think it's figuring out where the line is in the charge, because I did think it was a collaborative committee trying to figure out the long-term direction of the town's planning for consolidating things. But, I really don't wanna go discuss the whole thing too much further. I do wanna hear from Jim, because I think, since the money originally was in CIP before it moved over.
Yeah, I'll put my CIP chair hat on. I appreciate it. So let me just say first, I want to see these departments get into a contemporary facility more than anything. Largely because a consolidated facility, I mean, we're missing the plot a little bit with that station location study, just as the first point. Consolidating both departments into a single structure is more than just capital savings in building costs and building renovation costs compared to 2. It's also in equipment. Consolidating into a single, one of the big factors of that plan was consolidating the 2 departments allows us to retire all but 6 pieces of fire apparatus, which are also all in the CIP plan at $1 million plus a pop, that are long past their recommended service life. So being able to avoid a lot of that capital costs and consolidating into one station is a big part of that picture. That's separate. I did want to address Mike's comments about CIP. The $200,000 that was not reassigned. The department had a submission in for the next phase of engineering on a project that the CIP decided not to continue to carry on the plan because it assigned an additional $200,000 for the Emergency Services Facilities Building Committee that was being started up to do the planning. And that's what that is specifically for. It is not, I mean.
That's splitting hairs.
It may be, but that funding is not for this. And it shouldn't be captured for this.
Okay.
Aside from that, I'm really, from a CIP perspective, I am really disappointed. We're talking about I was on the Board of Finance when we purchased that trailer. The fact that they're still in that trailer is remarkably unfortunate. And it's simply because they haven't used that $200,000 in funding appropriately to advance that master planning effort. We could have a comprehensive plan for fire stations right now. We wouldn't have to be spending money on Station 13, which was the whole reason we tried to avoid it 3 years ago. My biggest concern with this is that we're asking for funding. We don't know what the state grant is going to cover. We don't know if there's going to be additional costs to the town could be from listening to the meetings, it could be several $100,000 if the state grant doesn't cover all the work that needs to get done there, because some of it may not be eligible. We don't have those answers. We're gonna be stuck with a lot of that information regardless, because now we're in a time crunch apparently to get into the winter. So we're gonna be stuck to spend taxpayer dollars on this in one way, shape or form. I wish we had a plan and understood what the total cost of this project is, and really had a sense of what that grant funding covers. If it really is this critical or this urgent, it should be a separate request of the Board of Finance, quite frankly. They are still gonna need that planning money if we're gonna get anywhere as a town. So I really remarkably think that should be maintained personally.
Thanks, Jim. I'm gonna throw out something that's a curveball to everyone, but if you just bear with me. I'm kind of, the more I hear about this and I understand the arguments about precedent and the arguments about clear and present danger and, a short-term need that, everybody's making a really good case for. And we do have it happen regularly. It's not something that we're unaware of on the Board of Finance where Station 13 is concerned. So, but what I'd like to throw out is, do we have the time on this to, next week, talk to the business manager? Because I talked to her briefly about whether there are other places within the budget that or money that we know is, maybe available for something shorter term like this.
I already have the answer to that, Stephanie. I can
Yeah?
answer that for you right now.
Okay, she thought she would maybe be able to look at it. But
Sure,
you feel,
she can. We'll be happy to look at it, but we're going to get the same answer as we've been struggling every day through the budget and through waiting to get through the referendums to get the budget for this fiscal year passed. There is very little extra. Well, there is no extra. There is very little money anywhere in our budget that could potentially be reassigned. There is nothing. The fund balance is the only unassigned money in all of the town's financial assets. The fund balance, which goes forward into the new budget, is the only unassigned money. That's it.
yeah, Andy?
The capital improvement plan is a plan submitted to the Board of Selectmen for approval.
I understand.
It's just a plan. Plans change based on things that happen on the ground. Things are happening on the ground, and I believe that this is a intelligent use of the taxpayer money that has been allocated for a very specific purpose. And if you look through the minutes of CIPs in past and Board of Finances, Wellington Hill asked for money for design and construction for years, and it was always set aside. If I'm not mistaken, they actually funded their own plan. They used their own station money to come up with a plan. And a long-term, and yes, we're working diligently on a long-term solution, but that still does not meet the immediate need. I don't care if we had a long-term plan, even if we got a $13 million grant tomorrow for a new Wellington Hill fire station, we still need to house the people and the equipment. It's right away. That doesn't negate that need.
Right.
And the fact that there is an active grant that we wish to take advantage of. And yes, it may be more than 25,000. Okay. Again, even if we had a plan and we're gonna implement it, we wouldn't have a fire station for 5 years. It does not negate the immediate need. So I understand that the diligent people and the hardworking people of the Capital Improvement Plan Committee, I don't disparage their work, but it's simply a plan. And that's changed.
Understood. I think I would say, you wanna say something?
I have a quick question. It seems the state that it's in now, I understand that you guys are coming from about this from the emergency services facilities build. I think I got it right, building today.
Oh,
We all know what I'm talking about.
That's a new name.
But the state that it's in now, I feel like it seems like more of a Station 13 thing. I'm just gonna throw it out there, cause I don't remember the numbers. I know I knew them at one point, but it's been a long time and there's been a lot of numbers in the last few months. Do you guys have any money from the tower fees or whatever, any money like that you guys could put towards the maintenance of your building?
Not enough to get it, do the full drainage project. I don't, and be able to make our payroll payments and everybody, so the way our tower fund runs, the winter is where it's heavy because we get the check in November, end of October, beginning of November. And then it fades out throughout the year between what we paid back into the town to help towards payroll, and stuff like that. So, do I know the number off the top of my head? No. But I think it'd be tough.
I have a question. What is the reluctance about releasing money that's already been allocated for a design? I don't really understand this.
I think
Why is
it's
there a
a,
conflict in
I
your
think
hearts?
there's a sense in certainly, I mean, I've been on, I was on CIP for 9 years.
Mhm.
I remember a lot of the history of
Sure.
this. First of all, a lot of the money that went into the joint committee that you guys are on was money that was redirected from that very same Wellington Hill money you cited.
Right.
So there's that, and they closed out the thing for the
Right.
greater good of
But it still came out of the same
on
checking
the plan.
account.
Well,
Came out of the same bucket.
now we're talking
One
about
big
it
bucket.
being construction versus
Okay.
planning
Right.
or both
And
stations.
you feel the taxpayers would be against that?
No, I just think that, I guess I have a different, you're talking to people who are on CIP and the Board of Finance. It's not that screen doorish, it's like when you have designated funds, you try to kind of continue with the purpose that you set them up for. Yes, things change. I think that's the whole thing about this ask is it's not like, oh, you're asking, can we release some money that's already designated for
Right.
construction? Or
Sounds like
for
an
emergency
emotional attachment,
construction.
not really a
So-
fiscal attachment.
Well, no, it is because, I mean, it's sort of like
Having a
taking
conversation.
well, it's the same thing. I think it's the same thing as saying, we gotta balance the budget, let's take it out of school reserve, let's take it out of the savings account. It's the same kind of
But the board has
choices.
this board has done that.
Everybody, I mean, we have had to do that,
Right.
but that's because we have no revenue at all. I mean, it's not because, we wanted to take it and put it in the operating budget. We're not doing that.
I know, but so I guess
Yeah.
since you're willing to take out reserves when it suits your needs, I don't understand. I mean, this is a need that benefits every taxpayer. I feel like this attachment to this money feels more emotional.
No,
Then
and
really
it's
as a-
like, we have like a lot of special accounts in town.
Mm-hmm.
There are designations for how we can use them. And so you're kind of, and it's like not, it may be that in this case, the emergency piece of it, and that's what I wanna, hear from the board. The emergency piece of it or the emergency element of it, because our backs are against the wall once again, but they have been regularly with Safe Station 13. We may just say, we have to break this wall. And that's what you
What is-
guys are arguing.
Just breaking the wall.
It means using money that was for a different use, that was identified for a different use. To do something that's separate, to do something that's, and I don't know, too, like, I'm not real clear where Public Works doing the work starts, and I'm assuming there's equipment involved or cost involved to the actual digging, but we haven't gotten into that.
I believe I heard tonight that the school building committee might do a referendum on the various choices for a school. Would it be fair to put something on the referendum to say, is the town willing to move, to release money from one? Why not? Why would that be wrong?
But yeah, it would be wrong because all the advice, Mike mentioned this the other day, that thought it was at the selectmen meeting. That you don't complicate a referendum, particularly
No, not
complicated.
referendum, I'm talking about Mr. Marshall was talking about doing a question.
Oh, you mean the
The
option
school
thing?
building options.
Yeah, but I think that's confusing.
Yeah, we're not.
That's apples and oranges.
No, it's not a real referendum, it's a temperature take.
Yeah, but it's
Yeah, but we're
also, it's also like,
The
it-
SBC will have no interest, I can guarantee you that, in combining.
And- yeah.
Okay,
Here's
that's
what
right.
it
I mean, I guess what I wanna hear
Good
like from
conversation.
Eric and Bill and Lisa, Jay, if what you guys think, where you think we are now. What you guys think is the best solution, realizing there's there's an emergency need once again.
So I think my question, so. Your committee, the committee is a member, a membership of an organization that provides engineering and design services.
The town is a
The
member
town,
of
but the committee
Capital
member.
Region Council of Government. Engineering design service is available to the town, not
The member
not to
towns.
the committee.
And is it at a discount or is it's included?
It's included in our membership, which is a line item on the budget.
Okay. And so this was never explored before.
It was unknown to me.
And I have no idea either.
No.
So it's just, so it seems, and I'm not assigning motive. Because this information was found,
Correct.
it was like, oh, this is like money we don't need to spend on a service we wanted anyway.
That is correct.
And your rationale is in order to start anything, can we reallocate 20,000 for engineering and designing anyway? Is the funds that you would like to see, oh my God, what's the word? Released or
Released, yeah,
reallocated,
You wanna spend some money?
yeah, for dirt, like construction,
Correct.
to start moving things forward. So EMTs don't inevitably quit, because I don't know how many of us would work in a camper in New England winter. I'm not even pressing, I'm not pressing an emotional response here,
No,
just.
let me flesh that out just a wee bit, because you touched on something. This, what the CERCOG was able to do was, and Alex and Michael jump in where I go astray. They not only provided design and engineering services for what the USDA grant did, they also provided complete details of all materials and equipment, and had a contractor lined up who's able to do it. Is that, so it's rather comprehensive, and it was a welcome surprise to everyone. I think, to speak on behalf of the committee, we were very pleased to hear that, because we did not know that. So now
Yeah,
we don't need that design and engineering money for this particular grant.
so as like a counterfactual, if you never found out, or the town did not have access to the service it was already granted, would you be here now? Like, if you never found out there's a design or in regards to the funds, like, would you be here asking?
We'd be here asking for money for design services for that building, is where we would be.
Which would,
And with no contribution towards actual work being performed. Physical work at the building.
And quite frankly, we might be asking for money to house our people too.
Yes.
But, so, yeah.
Alex,
I just wanna make a comment, because it's been said a couple of times that, we're back up as an emergency. The fire department has been trying to, we've been going to the board of
emergency services,
Yeah, thank you.
facilities building, or
Since last
is that right?
October. Since last October, September. Saying we need to move, we need to do something, we need to do something. Thankfully, First Selectman McCoo was able to get these guys on board. We've been working on this since December. It's not us trying to push an emergency. This is where it fell. And Mike can back me. I have been trying since January to get this ball moving.
and I'm not assigning like motives as like opportunity. To me, it almost seemed like, hey, we don't need to take this money for this. Can we use it for this instead, if it's already allocated?
Mhm.
To me, it makes sense, but I'm sure there are things that complicate it, at least like on this half of the equation. And I think did I characterize that
I
correctly?
think you did, yeah.
And I think that's, so like, to me, it seems reasonable, especially because it's what I would say is providing a lot of that information, like, I didn't know that it was a comprehensive, they had contractors lined up.
No, that's what.
Like, providing that, I think would go some ways, and, but I do, like, it seems rational and reasonable to me, because that money was already allocated and assigned. A reallocation of money that was already assigned is not, it's not going to like a apples, we're not buying apples and then we want oranges instead, because we found an apple tree, is a terrible
I think
analogy.
it's a, yeah. But I followed it.
Right.
I think it's the difference is thinking of longer term planning and the expertise it takes to get
Correct.
there. And I don't know, since I'm just hearing about this tonight, about
Correct.
the CROG thing, I'm not sure it's the same kind of services we need, or that they would be there, ready, willing, and able to supplant that money. I mean, when you say the thing about, oh, those services are available through CROG, that kind of question, that makes it sort of sound like we're gonna hit this pile again, of money again.
We have the plans already.
No, am I not saying this right? I think.
Maybe I'm not understanding.
Okay, I think maybe I'm not being clear. You know, we're kind of saying design work is available through CROG. But my understanding, but is that something that we could rely on for the bigger issue of consolidating
Isn't there
or
a design?
whatever it
You
is?
don't know if you're designing that,
Mike, isn't there a design already for
but not for
the
consolidated.
parameters of the USDA grant? That's, I don't know if it's in.
Mike, he may have stepped away.
Give me a second. Sorry, there's a new
That's-
version. There's a new version of Zoom on my screen and it's not the same. No, I'm here. I've been listening all along.
That's okay.
There is initial level, early level design work. Somewhere there are official levels of design. What we have is somewhere between programmatic, schematic design level that was used for the grant application for 25 old farms. It's very basic. The design, I'm trying to think of the right way. I don't know the CROG program has the bandwidth or the financial support to do a full design at gratis as part of our dues. To do that level of design would be part of a project that would have to be funded somehow. They could still do it, but it would have to be in a project that's funded. Does that answer the question? We're not hearing anything out here in Zoom land from you guys. It's silent.
Is there anything wrong with you're not muted?
Oh, it's working now.
Okay.
We can hear you, but I guess, can you hear us?
We can now, yep.
Okay, great.
Mike, this is Andy, that design you were talking about, you were saying station 13, is it fleshed out?
For a large trial.
Yeah,
What about
No, the design that CROG did for us, the design that CROG and Millennium Builders did for us as part of the program that we did not pay anything for, was a basic floor plan layout. And as you said, the job scope, the materials list, and all that stuff. That is the level they provide at the free level so that you can help in scoping and potentially bidding a project. One of the problems with the Department of Ag grant was they require, even for a small project like this, they would require an architect and an engineer to certify and do a full set of plans, which is just for the scope of work we were doing is just not necessary, but their rules require it. That was one of the things we were bumping up against. And so it would essentially take what was going to be a $500,000 project, and by applying all their requirements, maybe double the cost of it, which then goes past our grant. So that was the conundrum that we've been in with working. It's not that the Department of Ag won't pay for these things. They will actually pay for everything we're asking for. They've already said that. The problem is what their requirements were to get them to pay for all of those things. For example, as I mentioned before, the July 1st change. It used to be before July 1st, if we were going to put a shovel in the ground outside the building, you had to do the full like endangered species studies and all this other stuff, which was clearly not required when you're talking about property that is not out in some natural habitat anywhere. It's a parking lot and a building. And all we wanted to do is dig around the foundation to replace existing drainage and cut the parking lot to connect to the drain. And so when we had the conversation 2 weeks ago with the supervisor, he said, well, of course, this would not need any of those studies. And with the July 1st rule change, we don't have to do those studies anymore for this type of scope of work. And as a matter of fact, we have an in-house engineer that would review that and sign off on it, because you're not out in some wild natural habitat somewhere. He'd be able to certify that this has no impact, and we would just move on. So that's one of the things that's changed in time.
Yeah.
Ask one quick question, or two quick questions. One, first, a statement. Knowing, because of the work on the SBC, that the Emergency Services Facilities Building Committee is going to need every dollar of that $200,000 to advance the larger planning and design to get to a project that voters can support. I will with certainty put my money on that. Separately, because of that, I think it's pretty important to understand what the total ask is to the town or to the taxpayers. If $25,000 might just be a first step, and we're having trouble funding that, if it's $100,000 more because the grant doesn't cover all of it, where does that money come from next? Or are we just throwing $25,000 into it? Is it another 100,000 coming out of the money that was put aside for their planning? I think you need a comprehensive picture. The question I have is more of a technical one. So Public Works is going to be doing this work. The fire department is a private property. It is not town-owned property. They're doing drainage and actual physical construction. What happens if there's a problem? Or what happens if mold happens in that building again and it's related to poor drainage? What is the liability on the town for that? This is more than just like digging a hole or helping somebody move some earth. This is actually putting in permanent structures on somebody's private property. And I think that is a potentially big consideration that we should be looking at if we're going that route with it. And so I asked
Madam Chairman,
Yeah, Mike, can you comment on that?
I think we're getting far afield here, and I think this is a ridiculous exercise at this point, and I'm wasting another evening on town business when we're just going in circles. And quite honestly, I'm running out of energy for town meetings night after night after night. So I think if we can't move forward with this, I think we should stop. We're 2.5 hours into this meeting. I think we need to move something forward or move it to another night and get to just the question of whether we should do this thing or not. And in the meantime, I'm going to go and see if I can sell the parking lot features at the town office building and see if we can get some money to make some progress. Yeah, I'm frustrated.
Yeah, I can tell. But Mike, I'm not even sure what this looks like. Can we do this as a
So let's table it and let's just get it over with, because we're all bleeding to death here.
consensus on the board or a motion?
Yeah,
Does anyone have-
table,
What?
table it.
Bill?
I make a motion that we table this to another meeting.
Is there a second? Eric seconds. Further discussion? No, hearing none. Could we do a vote?
Do a roll call vote.
Yeah.
Ms. Summers,
Yes.
Mr. Ross,
Yeah.
Mr. DeCastro.
Yes.
Ms. Wolf,
Yes.
Mr. Brunel,
Yes.
all in favor, motion passes unanimously. 5-0.
Thank you.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Four.
Four, I
Four.
apologize.
Yeah, that's okay.
Ms. Wolf was not seated. Right.
Yeah, she was seated. Oh, so it is. Yeah, it is fine.
I was seated, yeah.
Yes. Christine.
5-0.
Yeah.
She was seated. I'm sorry. Okay. Sorry for the rigorous conversation, but I think what I think, I'm trying to figure out a way to do something that, it's not, I think, Andy, you said something like, oh, it sounds like emotional attachment. It's not, it's more, trying to make sure that we do this right, particularly since it's an open door on what the amount could build to be.
That's fine.
So, I just wanna, and two, I kind of asked you, but, and also, I think I might have asked Mike. I feel like we need to sort of develop what emotion would look like to address this if we were gonna try to address it out of this money. That way. And, meanwhile, I would urge all the parties to look at what, maybe we even have to sort of put some money together from different corners. Some from the FD, if you've got something that you don't really have to purchase or something like that. And maybe some less from the emergency services money or something like that. I just feel like, and I wouldn't mind hearing if Sherry has an idea too, but I understand we're all kind of scraping the bottom of the barrel without, having a lot of misery. So, thank you for participating, everyone, in this. I'm gonna go to present to speak, if anyone wants to vent. Or speak. Is there anyone online who would like to make a comment to the board? Mike?
Thanks. I just want to take this moment to say I'm not frustrated with the fact that questions are being asked and that the idea is being challenged. That is this board's job. It's this board's responsibility. So I don't want anyone to think that. I'm frustrated with sort of how far adrift the conversation's going. And I'm frustrated with there's sort of a mixing of topics and all sorts of things that I think are distracting us from actually getting anywhere. We're sort of in the classic bureaucracy thing of, well, we want a really good plan, so let's put a plan together. Well, we have an emergency and we have potential funding available, so let's use some of that funding, and then everything gets mixed all up. And well, we can't use the funding because we need to have a plan, but the plan's going to take time, which now leaves us in a conundrum where the facilities building committee was intentionally charged with dealing with short term and long term. And so now the hands are tied, basically. So that's what I'm frustrated with. And thank you for the opportunity to clear that up.
Can you clarify, given that, can you clarify what your timing is so we know? Because if it involves a special meeting, I have to say, I came in a little colder on this issue than I usually do on asks. Because I really didn't have any, recommended action or data to go on before we sat down. Just a lot of experience over the years, but not specific to this current need, but certainly I've had other experience with firehouse needs that have been unforeseen. So I'm wondering, can you give me timing, Mike?
I'm not sure how you asked that, what timing you're talking about.
But you said, I mean, I think like, how soon is there a point with a grant or with the steps?
I can
You
answer that, sure.
Yeah,
It's not fair for me to speak about what Andy and Ralph's intention was with this approach tonight because I was not in attendance at the meeting and they're the chair and vice chair. However, as far as what my goals have been as first selectman, I think I was clear tonight is to try to get the EMTs under a real roof by this winter, which obviously, even though it's only the second week of July, in this world, especially with bureaucracy, which is necessary, as we can see, the winter's coming fast. As far as the grants, the larger grant we talked about up on Wellington Hill is its own process. We're not sure when we'll get the first feedback on that grant. The grant that we have for 426 River Road, the station we're talking about mostly tonight, we have that grant available to us. It was awarded. It is currently at the federal level, and if we can get the Department of Ag to agree on our game plan, our work plan, they will transfer that money into the local. They have different stages of where the money is. They'll transfer it into the local. Once it's in the local, then we're essentially free to start moving because we can make draws on it and all that other stuff. So the timing is really for this critical issue, the timing is either having funds to move right now, which I believe was Andy and Ralph's intent, or to get the grant in hand and have the work plan approved so that we can actually make draws. But again, I believe it's reimbursement based. So we would draw from town funds temporarily and then get reimbursed. That happens in the normal course of business. We can use fund balance for that because we expect the money to come back around quickly. So I'm not sure if that's what answers your question, but the largest time driver is trying to get the EMTs under a roof before the winter.
okay. Thank you.
Yep, thank you.
Other thoughts? Presence to speak, or anything else? Nope. Okay. Let's adjourn then. So move. I don't think we have to adjourn.
I move we adjourn.
All right, let's do it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Second.
Yeah.
We have to do that though.
Now, in this same meeting adjourned,
Yeah.
sometimes without.
Oh, yes, if I have.
Thank you for the
Okay.
conversation, gentlemen.
Likewise.
Congratulations, by the way.
Thank you.
Yeah, good and welfare.
Bye.
Bye.
Are you done?
Thank you.
Are you done? Are we done?
Yeah, have you had enough fun yet?
Yes, I'm sorry.
No, I'm tired. I have to go to work.
No,